Society loves conformity. It rewards those who follow the rules, stay in line, and never ask too many questions. But what happens to those who refuse? The outsiders, the thinkers, the rebels, the artists, they unsettle the status quo. They're called too much, too radical, too weird, too ahead of their time, and society hates them for it. History is littered with outsiders who were mocked, exiled, or erased. Nietzsche was called a madman, Camus, a nihilist. Van Gogh died penniless. But here's the uncomfortable truth. These outsiders weren't just misfits. They were prophets. They saw through the lies the rest of us accept. And that's why they were feared. Today, nothing's changed. We still silence those who challenge the system. Why? Because outsiders force us to confront truths we'd rather ignore. That our politics are broken, that our planet is burning, that our obsession with likes and followers is rotting our souls. Nietzsche called it slave morality. Camus called it the absurd. Kierkegaard called it the crowd. And all of them agreed. The outsider isn't the problem. Society is. This isn't just philosophy. It's a survival guide for anyone who's ever felt like they don't belong. For the quiet kid who's told they're too sensitive. For the artist told their work won't sell. For the activist dismissed as a radical. Today, we're dissecting why society fears outsiders through the minds of Nietzsche, Camus, and Kierkegaard. And spoiler, they're not here to make you feel better. They're here to make you think. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. So, what exactly is an outsider? Let's cut through the romanticism. An outsider isn't just someone who wears black or listens to obscure bands. No. Outsiders are the ones who reject the stories society sells us. The ones who ask, why? When everyone else says, yes. Nietzsche called it the struggle against the tribe. Camus called it rebellion against the absurd. But at its core, it's about refusing to live a lie. Society runs on scripts. Go to school, get a job, buy things you don't need. Outsiders rip up those scripts. They're the Henry David Thoreaus who ditch civilization to live in the woods. The Colin Kaepernicks who kneel during anthems to protest injustice. The Edward Snowdens who leak the unredacted truth, letting secrets bleed into the public eye no matter the cost. The quiet coders who question whether AI should control our lives. They're not rebels without a cause. They're rebels because of a cause. Outsiders see through the collective hallucinations we call normal. Consumerism, nationalism, perfectionism. They're the ones who say, this isn't working, and I won't pretend it does. But here's the catch. Society doesn't just ignore outsiders. It demonizes them. Because every outsider is a mirror, forcing us to confront our own compromises. So why do outsiders unsettle us? Because they threaten the illusion of control. They remind us that the rules are arbitrary, that the emperor has no clothes, and that terrifies people. As Kierkegaard warned, the crowd is untruth. It's easier to hide in the noise of the masses than to face the silence of your own truth. Outsiders? They choose the silence. Imagine a world where greatness is a crime, where thinking differently is a threat. This isn't dystopian fiction. It's the world Friedrich Nietzsche warned us about. The 19th century philosopher spent his life attacking society's most sacred lies. And his warning? The herd always destroys those who rise above it. Nietzsche's herd isn't just a crowd, it's a mindset. The herd thrives on slave morality, rules invented by the weak to guilt the strong into submission. Don't be too ambitious, they say. Don't question authority, fit in. But the Übermensch, the overman, smashes these rules. They create their own values. They don't seek permission, and that's why the herd hates them. Nietzsche didn't just theorize about outsiders. He lived it. His books were ignored, his ideas mocked. He watched his philosophy twisted to justify the very conformity he despised. By 45, he suffered a mental breakdown, writing, "I am dynamite." Tragically, the herd won, but his ideas outlived him. Today's Übermenschen, they're the whistleblowers, inventors, and rebels who refuse to stay in their lane. Think of Edward Snowden, exposing government secrets and exiled, or Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, dismissed as alarmist for proving a city's water was poisoning its children. Banksy, dismissed as a vandal while redefining art as a weapon against power. Society brands them arrogant, crazy, or dangerous. But Nietzsche would argue, if you're not being called those things, you're not thinking boldly enough. The herd isn't evil, it's terrified. Every Übermensch forces people to confront their own mediocrity. Why climb corporate ladders when you could build your own? Why obey traditions when you could reinvent them? Nietzsche's answer? Become who you are, even if it means walking alone. Nietzsche's message isn't about arrogance, it's about courage. The courage to stop following and start leading, even if the herd calls you a monster. Because in the end, the Übermensch doesn't fear isolation. They fear a life unlived. What if life has no meaning, no grand plan, no cosmic purpose? For Albert Camus, this wasn't a tragedy. It was liberation. The 20th century philosopher of the absurd spent his life arguing that the greatest rebellion is to stare into the void and laugh. But society hates those who laugh at its lies. Let's meet the absurd hero. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. Camus's absurd hero is Sisyphus, the Greek myth condemned to roll a boulder uphill forever. But here's the twist. Sisyphus finds joy in the struggle. For Camus, life is equally absurd. We're born, we work, we die. Yet instead of despairing, the absurd hero rebels. They reject society's empty promises, happiness through money, status, or power, and choose to live passionately despite the meaninglessness. Camus didn't just write about rebellion, he lived it. As a journalist in Nazi-occupied France, he risked execution to publish underground newspapers. Later, he'd be attacked by both communists and capitalists for refusing to pick a side. Why? Because Camus knew true rebellion isn't about ideologies. It's about refusing to let systems control your soul. Today's absurd heroes, they're the ones who laugh in the face of futility. The anonymous street artist mocking billionaires with a spray can. The minimum wage worker who quits to write poetry. The parent raising kids in a world on fire. Society calls them naive or unrealistic. But Camus would say, they're the only ones who are free. The absurd hero terrifies society because they expose the game. They don't chase promotions or Instagram fame. They don't fear failure because in an absurd world, failure doesn't exist. There's only the act itself, the painting, the protest, the love. As Camus wrote, there is no sun without shadow, and it is essential to know the night. Outsiders don't run from the dark, they dance in it. Camus' message isn't about despair, it's about defiance. The world may be absurd, but we can still choose to burn brightly, to create, to connect, to fight. And in that choice, we become unbreakable. Society fears the absurd hero for one reason. They prove that chains only exist if you believe in them. What does it cost to be truly yourself? For Søren Kierkegaard, the answer was everything. The father of existentialism spent his life warning us. Authenticity isn't a virtue, it's a battlefield, and society will punish you for daring to fight. The crowd is untruth. Kierkegaard hated the crowd, not people, but the idea of the crowd. The mindless rituals, the hollow traditions, the way we disappear into roles. Pastor, CEO, influencer. He called it living in aesthetic mode. Performances designed to please others. But beneath the mask, a void, a self erased. Kierkegaard's solution? The leap of faith. Not blind religion, but a radical commitment to your truth. Even if it terrifies you, even if it isolates you. He wrote, "Life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward." Translation: you can't wait for permission to exist. You leap or you rot. Kierkegaard paid the price. He abandoned his fiancée to avoid dragging her into his storm of thoughts. He attacked Denmark's state church, calling pastors clowns in God's circus. The public mocked him as either or, a madman obsessed with choices. But Kierkegaard knew, to be authentic, you must choose yourself, even if it breaks your heart. Today's Kierkegaards? They're the ones who refuse to fit in at the cost of their souls. The employee who rejects hustle culture to care for a sick parent. The artist who paints their trauma instead of pretty sunsets. The quiet kid who says no to peer pressure. Society calls them difficult, selfish, or too sensitive. Kierkegaard would say, that's the price of a soul intact. Kierkegaard's warning isn't about rebellion, it's about resurrection. To be yourself, you must kill the person society demands you to be. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it hurts. But as he wrote, the highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but to be lived. The crowd will always fear your light. Shine anyway. Why does society fear outsiders? It's not because they're dangerous. It's because they're mirrors. Outsiders reflect back everything we're too afraid to see. Our compromises, our lies, our complicity. And that reflection? It's unbearable. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. History repeats the same pattern. Outsiders are scapegoated for society's sins. Galileo was silenced for proving the Earth orbits the Sun. Today, whistleblowers like Julian Assange are jailed for exposing corruption. Why? Because they force us to confront our role in broken systems. It's easier to shoot the messenger than to fix the message. Psychologically, outsiders trigger cognitive dissonance, the pain of holding two conflicting beliefs. I'm a good person versus I support systems that harm others. Outsiders shatter that delusion. So society neutralizes them, call them crazy, cancel them, gaslight them. Nietzsche called it the herd's will to ignorance. Today, we've swapped witch trials for subtler weapons. You're too radical. You're too idealistic. You're paranoid. You're divisive. You're not a team player. These aren't criticisms. They're defense mechanisms. As Kierkegaard warned, the crowd needs conformity to survive. Outsiders are existential threats. Society fears outsiders because they prove freedom is possible. That you can reject the scripts, the roles, the lies. But that freedom terrifies those who've built their lives inside the cage. So here's the truth. The fear isn't about you. It's about the chains others refuse to break. So you've realized you're an outsider. Society's rules don't fit. The crowd's applause feels hollow. Now what? Do you surrender? Or do you turn your alienation into armor? Let's get practical. Here's how to wear your outsider status not as a scar, but as a crown. In the midst of winter, I found there was, within me, an invincible summer. Nietzsche said, become who you are. But first, you have to unbecome who society told you to be. Rewrite your narrative. Are you too sensitive or deeply empathetic? Unrealistic or visionary? Outsiders aren't broken. They're unfinished, and that's your power. Kierkegaard warned against the crowd, but he didn't say you have to be alone. Find your tribe of one. People who see the world like you do. Not followers, co-conspirators. And if you can't find them, be your own tribe. Write letters to your future self. Create art only you understand. The myth that outsiders need validation is a trap. You are enough. Camus taught us that rebellion is the only rational response to an absurd world. So rebel, but strategically. Channel your loneliness into art, your anger into activism, your confusion into curiosity. Society wants you to crumble. Instead, create something that outlives their scorn. Build a business, write a manifesto, plant a garden in a landfill, make your outsider status a battering ram. Outsiders thrive on refusal. Say no to toxic relationships, no to soul-crushing jobs, no to the lie that you must fix yourself. Kierkegaard's leap of faith isn't about belief. It's about trust. Trust that your no will carve space for a deeper yes. Society will try to extinguish you. Let it. Fire is how forests reinvent themselves. So burn brightly. Create, disrupt, love recklessly. And when they ask, why can't you just be normal? Smile and say, normalcy is the lie. I choose the truth. Outsiders don't just challenge society, they redefine it. Nietzsche's Übermensch, Camus' rebel, Kierkegaard's solitary truth seeker, they all share one truth. Progress begins with those brave enough to stand apart, to think differently, to burn brighter. And while society may fear them, history remembers them. The world is changed by your example, not your opinion. Every revolution starts with a single heretic, a single voice, a single act of defiance. The crowd may drown you out today, but time bends toward those who dare to question. Van Gogh's stars outshined his critics. Nietzsche's ideas outlived his detractors. And you? Your defiance, your refusal to fit in, is a ripple that becomes a wave. So let them call you too much, too radical, too idealistic, too loud. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs fire starters. People who'd rather risk burning than suffocate in the dark. As Camus said, the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. If this video resonated with you, you're already one of us. Smash subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own potential. Drop a comment below. What societal rule will you break this week? Share this with anyone who's ever felt like they don't belong. And remember, the world needs your light. Don't you dare dim it.